My name is Ryan Stillwell. I'm the owner here at Stillwell Risk Partners. We are a commercial insurance and risk management firm. And one of the things we specialize in is cyber liability insurance, right? So if you're not familiar with it, cyber liability insurance is something that most businesses today need in some capacity or another. It protects you from cybercrime, things like data breach, ransomware, extortion, and a number of other things. So what I'm going to do today is tell you about what you need to know if you're looking at cyber liability insurance, what makes a good policy, how to evaluate it, because there are a lot of different forms out there. So what is cyber liability, right? So we touched on this very briefly. It's a type of liability insurance that protects you from a number of different types of claim scenarios. So the most common thing that people think of is data breach, right? You think about Target, you think about Experian, you think about some of the big name data breaches that have occurred in the past decade plus. And there's some big examples there to know about data breach, right? And you think about the privacy liability and everything that comes with it. But that is just one of many things that cyber liability insurance, at least good policies, can protect you from, right? So even if you're a business that does not hold complicated or significant amounts of personally identifiable information, or maybe you're holding names, addresses, email addresses, things along those lines where you're not holding social security numbers and dates of birth. There's still potential for there to be some privacy liability with names and addresses and email addresses, but it's much less significant than if you're holding HIPAA data, for example. But the good cyber liability policies protect you from a number of things outside of just the data breach liability. So for example, when you're evaluating coverage, how comprehensive is that coverage? Does it just have a single limit with maybe a few small sublimits on there? Or is it including things along the lines of ransomware or cyber extortion? Is it including business interruption coverage? Is it including funds transfer fraud or social engineering fraud? Does it provide you with reputational harm repair, right? So from a coverage perspective, it's kind of, if you don't live in the world of cyber insurance, it's hard to evaluate these policies because they come in many forms. One of the things to be skeptical of is if the only cyber liability coverage you have comes along with a business owner's policy or a general liability policy, because those types of coverages tend to be much more restrictive. You don't have the wide breadth of coverage language that a more comprehensive standalone cyber liability can come with. The one exception to that is if you're like a technology company, or you have an errors and omissions policy that kind of incorporates the cyber and privacy liability into that. But even still, in some of those cases, it's not as comprehensive as it would be with a standalone policy. So that's number one, is what type of comprehensive coverage does it have? Number two is what type of coverage features does it have that are favorable to you? So for example, this gets into a little bit more of the legalese and the contractual language of the policy, but does the policy have language that pays on your behalf or reimburses you, right? So you might see this as pay on behalf is typically the way it's phrased. If they're reimbursing you, usually they use the term indemnification. They're going to indemnify you. Where this comes into play is, let's say you have a ransomware attack and you have to then go and purchase cryptocurrency to be able to pay off the ransom. And your insurance company says, yeah, go ahead and pay it, we'll reimburse you. But where's that money going to? Is it going to a country that you don't want to send payment to? Like, a country that's on the terrorist watch list, or there could be some higher level international law or federal law that would prohibit you from making a payment to them, right? So who's making the payment for you? What else is there? Where is coverage defense costs inside or outside the limits? What type of limits are you getting from the policy, and what type of retention are you holding on to? Retention's another word in insurance we use that is very similar and sometimes means the exact same thing as a deductible. So if you have a $10,000 deductible or retention limit, or a $25,000 retention limit, versus what's available with lower deductibles and retention limits for small businesses, you have a $25,000 retention limit. Those are really hard to put the cash together for, versus a smaller policy that's going to have 1,000 or 2,500 even. And pay attention to the sublimits on the policies as well, because for things like social engineering fraud, oftentimes you can have a higher deductible, a lower sublimit of coverage for that specific thing in that specific coverage area. So pay attention to those as well. Think about what types of resources your insurance carrier is going to give to you, right? Are they doing a background screening, dark web assessment, cyber risk assessment of your business prior to issuing the policy? And are they communicating that with you? What are some of the standard things that you can do to help improve your security from a cybersecurity standpoint? And are they offering tools to help keep you up to date and proactively monitor your website to look out for attacks and be able to work with your IT services provider, your managed services provider, to help stay in front of emerging risks, stay in front of things that are happening to your business in real time? Do they have, potentially a dedicated support team from a technical standpoint, right? So let's say that they do that background screening before they issue the policy, and they say, okay, there's a major critical alert here that has to be rectified before we can put a policy in place, right? Are they going to get on the phone with you, your IT team, to help rectify that situation and get you into a better security standpoint, so that not only is your business better protected, but you're going to be able to be eligible for coverage, and maybe even at a discounted rate, right? So there's a lot of things that can be looked for in terms of when you're evaluating your cyber liability insurance and the ways in which to do this. Now, I do recognize that what I'm going over is complicated information. And when you actually see an insurance quote proposal from a cyber liability insurance carrier, reading that policy can be overwhelming. There's upwards of 24 different coverage lines and limits. And oftentimes they're using very technical words to describe what is actually covered and is not. So working with somebody on the insurance side that is familiar not only with the types of coverage and relevant limits, but also understanding the way the policy forms are written, where things apply and where things don't, can really walk you through what specifically your business needs, what you need to be concerned about. And a big red flag is if, oh yeah, you have $50,000 in cyber liability policy on your business owner's policy, you're good to go. You have the coverage. That's a major red flag. $50,000 in coverage barely scratches the surface of what you might be liable for if you are attacked. And in case you are unaware, small businesses are the main victims of cyber crime. And that's really for two main reasons. Number one, small businesses do not have the resources to dedicate to cybersecurity as larger companies do. Oftentimes they don't have in-house teams to be able to protect themselves from these types of things, and their defenses are just less sophisticated by nature, right? So it's easier to get in. You're less likely to notice that somebody's in there. And number two, small businesses can be a vector to attack larger companies, right? Because your emails tend to be trusted sources to people at other companies that you work with. And there are vectors in which cyber criminals can go in through your email to run phishing scams on your contacts, or to be much more careful about using deep fake information and social engineering fraud to access other companies and larger companies through your email or your systems, which then may leave you liable for that as well. So like I said, my name's Ryan Stillwell. I'm the owner at Stillwell Risk Partners. And one of the things that we do specialize in is cyber liability insurance. So if you're not confident in what you have now, you're looking to get it in place for the first time, or you just want a more holistic evaluation of what you're doing from a risk management standpoint and how we might be able to help you, please just reach out to us. We're happy to have that conversation with you and see if there's a way for us to help. Again, Ryan Stillwell, Stillwell Risk Partners. We help our clients take control of their risk.